Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of the Punter, your weekly guide to the betting markets, giving your weekend that little bit extra. How's the New Year's resolutions getting on? Mine are solid as a rock. Just to recap, they were stay away from all gyms, keep drinking and bet like a degenerate. The willpower has been tested, but somehow I've done it. Now I've got the men to give you the value this weekend. A great panel as ever, joined by Russ Wiseman from Sporting Bet. Hi Russ.
Hi Nick, how you doing?
Neil Sealey, our resident punter.
Hello, Nick.
Hello, and Alan Alger from Blue Square.
Hi, Nick.
Great to see you all again. How are we doing? We happy? How was our weekend?
Yeah, not bad actually. I mean, it was a fairly quiet betting kind of week, I think it's fair to say. But
speak for yourself.
Well, that's
mate.
what I was saying. I was going to say there are obviously isolated incidents where people have gone crazy, but I mean, got to give Neil some credit. I think on the NFL, he actually not only did he tip up Denver with plus 9.5, but they actually won the game, and he suggested that could happen. So that was an interesting one. But it was FA Cup weekend last weekend. No major shocks. I think maybe some of the big teams actually taking it quite seriously this year.
And does that mean, with no major shocks, Alan, does that mean that some punters had a good weekend?
Yeah, I think the results were there, but there were still the odd results that knocked out the accumulators for us. So I would say it's a very balanced week, and as Russ says, it was a quieter week than we've had in the preceding weeks. Obviously, we had the darts in the preceding weeks, a lot of football going on, a lot of Premier League football, and it just slowly reached a slower phase of punters getting involved at this weekend.
Slow betting week, but you had a little adrenaline rush, didn't you? When you doing the rounds as a mascot?
Yeah, I dressed up as Rex the Dragon for Wrexham at Brighton in the FA Cup third round. Part of a losing bet that I had with one of their players that they wouldn't win at Brentford in the second round, and had to don the costume for about an hour and a half before kick-off at the Amex Stadium. About 20,000 people there. So
and good for you, but you've singularly failed to bring us the pictures, which I'm a little bit crushed about.
They're available on the internet. I'm pretty sure by the end of the show someone will find them.
And in fairness, you said you got a warm reception as well. You said it was good, yeah?
Yeah, it was very good. And I would say all credit to Brighton, who actually made the day enjoyable rather than...
well, you must have done a good job, because Brighton managed to only draw, and they were about 2-1 on to win, weren't they?
Yeah, well, Wrexham played incredibly well. I mean, they did give me the credit at the end of the game, but I think the players played well, and
they've asked me to.
Yeah,
in these situations,
I'm going to take the credit.
Creates
but
the tempo, doesn't it?
They've asked me to do the replay as they came off the pitch, and I've agreed. So that's on Tuesday.
Well, I tell you what,
It'll be live on S4C, which
regular Rexy's got to be a bit upset, hasn't he? He's had an expensive Christmas, and now all his overtime is being shot to pieces.
And Neil, Russ has done some of your PR for you.
Yeah, well, I mean,
how was it for you?
Fair play. I mean, you have to say, I did say that Denver can win the game, and Tim Tebow was going to come good and everything. It only got me out of it, to be honest with you. I did my absolutes on the Detroit Lions against the damn Saints. And the other games, yeah, there were a bit too many points in the NFL for me. I basically spent last week watching about, I don't know, I guess I must have been sat in front of NFL for the best part of 16 hours last weekend. The darts, the BDO, it hasn't been quite as exciting as the PDC. Just being on ESPN, not so many people watching it, so not so much action. But I had been doing quite well on that until the last couple of days. But yeah, pretty much I've been glued to sport. I was just going to ask you guys, the FA Cup last week, is it just like no business on the matches compared with the Premier these days?
Well, I'd still say the live games were still fairly chunky. There was a couple of great live games as well, weren't there? I mean, but it's not Premier League. Let's put it in perspective. It's not the Premier League.
What is it? 60% of the turnover for a Premier League Saturday? Or?
Well, I mean, let's look at, if you look at a couple of the games, they're probably a bit less than that, but you'd probably still say around there. Yes.
I think the big difference was obviously people's access to that Manchester derby. Being on terrestrial television meant that people got involved.
Yeah.
So
and a great game as well.
That one isolated, and the in-running aspect of City being behind, are they going to come back with a 10 men? Big prices around, a few big liabilities around. So that was one exciting and a game.
And of course Birmingham Wolves as well.
That's unbelievable. I mean, the fact that
they've picked that again for another
they've
TV
picked that,
game
they've
for
picked
the
that for the
replay.
replay.
I mean, who is the most stupid person ever that came up with that decision?
No, I will be there actually on Wednesday night.
Well,
you're more than anybody watching the
Punter
Punter is more than welcome to join me there, because there will be space.
Or to come to Wrexham against Brighton, which would be much more exciting. And should have been there.
Shows give you the. Oh dear. Now let's bring in Gordon Watson. Flash hopefully is there, and he had another big week. He's on fire. Flash, are you with us? Gordon, talk to me. We've got a little technical problem. Can't quite hear Flash at the moment. I'm sure we'll get to this, but when he does, he'll tell us just how many football bets he won. I think it was about 8 out of 5. It's pretty impressive. There was a funny thing with the FA Cup that you were saying, Neil, about Norwich.
Yeah, so we were talking, we talked last week a little bit about backing some teams outright for the FA Cup. I managed to completely ignore Sealey, not for the first time, when he told me not to touch West Brom with a barge pole. I couldn't resist it. I thought, if I don't back this lot at 80 to 1 and they go and win the FA Cup, I'm just going to have to kill Seals. So I thought, well, the best thing is just to back them anyway and not tell him. But I'm telling him now because they got through. They've drawn Norwich in the next round. I did back Norwich as well. We put them up at 100 to 1. They beat Burnley 3-1. So you'd think they beat Burnley 3-1. They've drawn West Brom in the next round. They've avoided the kind of big 5. You'd think, well, maybe they've shortened to 66, maybe 50. No, they're still 100 to 1. So I reckon we have to go and press up again, don't we, on Norwich? I also talked about Stoke and Sunderland. So they both went through and they've shortened up a little bit. And Seals mentioned Newcastle and they've gone through. So we got a chance.
Do you know what? That 100 to 1 does represent fantastic value considering that the initial 100 to 1's been based on Man U and Man City being drawn together.
I think you're exactly right.
And then Liverpool and United have been drawn together. So you've eliminated.
I couldn't agree more.
Already, so,
I mean, we back Norwich at 100 to 1. West Brom
almost feels like you've got to go in again.
Well,
then.
you can still have 50 West Brom. I know they're playing each other.
I couldn't back West Brom. I agree with Nigel on that.
I wouldn't mind having 33 to 1 coupled, the winner of that leg in the last 6
So some value there, but just to clarify your charity bets, so the kids are looking for Sunderland to win the FA Cup. Well, you haven't mentioned yet.
No,
this is last week. You basically came out even, right?
Yeah, basically I put up 4 teams to win the FA Cup: West Brom, Stoke, Sunderland, and Norwich, and I've decided it would be a bit too bob having 15 quid on each for the kids. The kids have got a lot of begging back to do over the last few weeks, so we've lumped the whole lot on Sunderland, and they've drawn Middlesbrough at home, and they're into about 20 to 1. So I don't know, if you want to green up, kids, that might be the thing to do.
Make your £3 profit.
Don't green up, by the way.
Don't
kids,
do that.
Don't green up.
Now, just to recap on our other punters' picks yesterday. Flash, are you there now? Let's try you again. I still can't hear Flash in studio, unfortunately. This must be the most frustrating experience of his life. He's going to tell the world about his winners, and we can't get him on.
Did he have a good time, Flash? I can't remember what he put up. He did some good ones, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he ran the table, would you believe?
It's impressive.
He ran the table.
It's impressive.
Yeah, 5 out of 5. So I think overall,
there they are. Blimey. Look at that.
Stoke over Gillingham, Aston Villa over Bristol Rovers.
Aston Villa, I think that was one that everybody seemed to get. The
World Cup, that was a horrible result for bookies.
4 to 9 in the end, I think that was.
It was the wrong price originally. I mean, I think we did state last week that if that had been Crawley playing them, a team from the same division in good form, they'd have been around 8 to 13, and Villa were 4 to 7 into 4 to 9.
That was a fantastic tip you gave, actually. That just put it into relief how wrong that price was. And then Carlisle, Blackpool to beat Fleetwood, and Middlesbrough to beat Shrewsbury.
That genuinely is running the table.
Didn't they go 1-0 down against Gillingham? And we identified the kind of Tony Pulis factor as well. That was a good story. Was that you, Russ, that came up with it?
I did. I mean, but he seems to get the last laugh all the time, Tony Pulis. You can't actually go, if you physically or mentally go against this bloke, he always seems to put one over. But that is genuinely running the table. That's
and Carlisle won 4-0 as well.
I
mean, it wasn't too much of a sweat, these bets, was it?
It's pretty good.
Well, we'll definitely talk to Flash by the end of the show, and he can get his kudos for that, because that's a fantastic week. Just to recap what else happened during this week, I'm quite interested in the Spurs phenomena. They won again midweek. At what point?
What phenomena? They beat Everton.
They're beating everyone,
How's
Neil,
that
aren't
a
they?
phenomenon?
I just want to know at what point does any money get attracted?
Well,
towards
don't be
Spurs?
silly.
Well,
They
the
beat
thing is-
Everton at home.
The thing is,
Doubts about both Manchester teams.
quirk of the fixture list, the way it worked out, they didn't play that home game against Everton, which was the start of the season. Now, they attributed that to their slow start to the campaign, so they're actually saying that they probably would have been better off by now. All it's meant is that they've had 3 home games on the trot. They managed to win all 3. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that they're not contenders, because I can't see anyone behind them in the table that's going to finish above them. So they'll certainly be top 3. But it's asking you to take a giant leap of faith that this team are going to go and start competing in other important games. And the main point is the remaining fixtures. This stage of the season, it's in your Racing Post today, but it's something I've been mentioning. At this stage of the season, you really do need to look at the remaining games. And Tottenham have got harder
there are the
remaining
prices.
games.
Tottenham, you can get a 6-1 or 6.5 to 1 Sporting Bet.
I mean, I spend a lot of time, obviously, Spurs being the betting partner, and I actually spoke to Harry Redknapp after the game last week, and you can absolutely feel the kind of goodwill and the kind of great aura that's around this team at the moment. But the point that Alan makes is a great one. They've got Wolves tomorrow, obviously. They should win that game. I think we'll probably assume that they might win it. Obviously, the price.
I've already said they have won it.
but after that, they have got a wave of games all coming up in a row, and that's going to be the thing that tests.
Have they got to play all of the other top 6 teams away, right? Or
four
of them, and they've got to host
4 of
Man
their
United.
fellows, right.
And they're actually in quite proximity. You know, 3 of them are within a 3-week period. So I think that's going to test them. But you know, you can't knock them. They're clinical, aren't they? They win these games 1-2.
Okay, so let me challenge the general consensus. What if they go to the Etihad and win in a week's time? Then what? Then does this move substantially then?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, hugely. If they've won against Wolves and they win the next game, I think that'll be five wins on the trot.
They'll be 72. They'll be 72 to win the league.
I was just about to say they'll be half the price they are now, so it's about where Russ has just said.
Neil, you're not having it at all, are you?
I don't know. I mean, I've seen all this before. I mean, Tottenham to win the league, you're having a laugh.
Well, they've got a bigger points total now than 9 of the last 18 winners of the Premier League. Okay, at this stage.
Yeah, but
so
like you said,
it shows that they are on track.
Yeah.
They have got the harder remaining fixtures. United have got the easier remaining fixtures, and City have got a half and half mix between difficult fixtures and ones that they would be odds on to win. I suppose the big difference. You mentioned the African Cup of Nations because it's more likely to affect City than any of the other teams there, and Tottenham do play them in amongst that time, as Russ says, in 2 weeks' time. But apart from that, I think City do have quite a good run. I think it's all going to come down. The third to last game from the end of the season is a Manchester derby at the Etihad. And I think that will be the decider, and I don't think Tottenham will have a look in on that game.
Well, if it's within 3 points, what a betting heat that will be to, unbelievable, I think. Huge market. OK, thank you, guys. We're going to get into this weekend's action after the break. Starting with the weekend's football, you won't want to miss these guys' advice. Welcome back to the Punter. We're going to get into the weekend sporting action, starting as ever with the football. Maybe a slightly pedestrian fixture list for the Premier League. Is that going to affect? I know, Russ, you've got some overall thoughts on this weekend's fixtures.
Well, I think Nick generally, and I think Al might subscribe to this, and maybe Neil as well. But we've got some of the big sides at home in what were very obviously winnable games, as suggest, and the odds indicate that. So you've got Chelsea at home to the likes of. Who they playing? Chelsea playing against Sunderland, and then United, Bolton. So you've got Liverpool, Chelsea, United, and Spurs all in very winnable games, and then City away on the Monday night. I think we're obviously going to see a lot of accumulators, roll-ups, trebles, etc. with those games. The City will probably focus on being the key part of that 2-5 on against Wigan on Monday. However, I'm not so worried about that because the payout is minimal. There's a great chance in this competitive league that one of them will slip up. And as Neil said off air, the things that cause bookmakers bigger problems is when these big sides win in competitive matches, say away at Everton or Villa, closer to the even money mark. And this is not going to be the problem. I've got no problem in seeing bets for this kind of stuff. And even if we end up paying out, so it's not going to be telephone numbers.
Just to ask for people at home, why don't you have a problem with that? Is it because you think that the public will overestimate how likely those teams are to win as a general comment?
I think the odds basically indicate their chances.
So
I mean, they're very short prices, and on that basis, you're just not going to earn that much money. And there's a great chance one can slip up.
I think there's another thing is that like every week you lay these accumulators. Every single week.
That's right.
The week when you lay them when they're all 3-1 on can't be as bad as although it's got more chance of it winning. Yeah. The other thing is you've not got all the singles to add on. Like there aren't loads of people running into betting shops to have 100 quid to win 40 on a 2-5 chance in the football. But if a team was like Man City is away at a team like, I don't know, Everton say, and they're even money, you've also got all the people having an even £100 as well as all the accumulators and stuff to worry about.
And that's exactly the point. But there's no question that because of the conditions of the games, Wigan v Man City there'll be an enormous amount of money running up onto Man City on Monday night, and there'll probably be an industry punt that night as well. But and I wouldn't rule out Wigan. I mean, this is a team who absolutely competed with Liverpool, got a draw. No reason why they couldn't do the same.
I really fancy our chances. Sunderland, they won at Chelsea last year. Liverpool at home to Stoke. Well, we've seen them drawn five.
I like both
five,
of those.
six out of 10 games they've drawn at home.
Wigan. So Alan, you would subscribe to the fact it's set up to be slightly in the bookmakers' favour this weekend.
Well, we only need one draw, don't we?
Right.
From all those games, we only need one draw. If you want to package together all 5 of those teams at odds on, obviously it will be an odds against accumulator once you've ticked the box. But we only need one draw. You need 5 wins, and we're happy for that.
And don't forget, I mean, being a successful gambler is all about beating the correct chance of something happening, getting a prize. How are you going to beat that on these things? When the guys who make the prices on football sit down in the office on a Tuesday or whatever and say, right, what are we going to do in the Chelsea-Sunderland game? What are we going to do in the Wigan-Man City game? What do we think people are going to be looking to do in Wigan-Man City? It's not really that hard to work out, is it? People are going to be looking to back Man City.
Right. Okay, well, let's see if we can find something for people at home. Let's start out with the Man United-Bolton games. We'll start with the title race. Not televised this game, but I don't know, Blackburn overcame far worse odds. Bolton must be, well, not a bet, are they?
Well, they're not. I think because of that. I mean, they're 14-1 because of Manchester United's recent troubles. Now, if United had beaten Blackburn, had performed okay at Newcastle, and obviously just hadn't had these defensive mistakes and lapses, that would be around 20-1, 22-1.
Yeah,
we'd all sit here saying 8 on Man U, yeah, they'll probably win. Now punters have got it in their head that Manchester United are vulnerable, and the bookmakers reacted accordingly by saying, well, if you want to back a shock this week, you're not going to get a 20-1 shock, you're going to get a 14-1 shock if you want it, and the price has maybe gone too far the other way to be value.
Flash, you like anything in this game?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Welcome.
Hey.
You're basking in the glory of last week, no doubt.
Yeah, we did all right, but again, there wasn't many shocks, so they were quite comfortable, to be honest.
We're talking about Man United Bolton. Any chance of a shock in this one?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I thought the shock might come with Wigan Man City, to be honest.
Yeah, and Man City struggling at the moment. Do you ever like to bet these kind of strong favourites or the big teams at home, Flash? Do you put them in accumulators? Do you like that sort of bet?
It all depends. I think you have to go on individual merit. I mean, last week we had Aston Villa at 4-7. I mean, I think they went off around 4-9. So, yeah, I mean, the big sides against the weaker sides, then you just have to be careful. I tend to leave them alone, to be honest, because you can lose more than you can actually win.
Okay, well, it seems like we've got consensus. Let's see if the betting butler agrees. Nigel Sealey, are you there?
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Hey, Nigel.
We're good. We're very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good stuff. What do you think about this weekend's football? We think it might be not the greatest Premiership lineup in the world.
No, you've got the short price favourites in Manchester United playing at home and Tottenham as well. You know, the cornerstones for everyone's accumulators. But I think there could be slip-ups on the guys away. I think the Manchester City at 2-5 is a crazy price. I think Wigan could do something. They have all the players that Manchester City are missing. I also think Liverpool will struggle at home, and I also believe that, I think there could be another shock with Swansea and Arsenal. I think that's a difficult game. But for me, the best bet of the Premier League this weekend, I quite like the look at Newcastle at 4-5 to beat QPR. When football teams get a new manager, punters usually latch onto that and back them. But usually it has a negative effect. You know, people think that the manager comes in on the first week and he turns it around, but it doesn't normally happen. And I think QPR, that Joey Barton, Newcastle, obviously with some key players missing for the African Nations Cup. But I think they've got enough about them. And if it was Warnock going there, I don't think that they would be 4-5. I think they'd be closer to 8-13.
Nigel, we'll definitely come on to that game and remember what you said. But just on Man United Bolton, anything that you like in it, or is it one to stay away from?
Well, if you look at the head-to-heads between the two sides, Man United have convincingly won the last 6, and I don't see any reason why that trend can't continue. I think Manchester United will have enough ability. If you look at what Manchester United have done recently, apart from the Newcastle game, they've scored early at home and gone on to win the game comfortably. And I think if they do that, they will win by 2 or 3, maybe 4 goals. And I think that the handicap probably would offer the punters best, because I think Bolton will go there knowing they've got bigger games to come, and I think even whatever side they put, they know they're going to be in trouble. So I think Manchester United will cover the handicap -1.5 or maybe -2 on the Asian markets.
Okay. Anyone anything else on that game, or we're pretty solid that that's
nothing to add?
Okay, fine. Well, Nigel, take us into Wigan Man City. You've already mentioned it. It could be the upset of the weekend. Is there a danger that everyone will think that it's going to be the upset of the weekend and it'll go too far the other way?
Well, it all depends really what happens on the results on Saturday and Sunday. There's a lot of bets running on. You know, Manchester City could be 2-5 now, but if all the big favourites win, then Manchester City will be shorter. So it's really a question mark of holding your bets till Monday night. But if you look at the records between the two sides, Wigan have got a good record against Manchester City. City have only won once in the last 6 at Wigan. So it's pretty much a local derby. There's a lot of stake. Wigan tend to do well against the bigger sides. It's the bottom sides they struggle. And Manchester City, without the players they're missing, I think, you know, any team 2-5 away from home in the Premier League is a failure for me. I think if you were a layer at 2-5 or big odds on away from home, it's a good way to make money. I think it's the first way to the poorhouse if you're a punter taking 2-5. And I think City, the way they're playing, they're in a little bit of trouble. David Silva might not play, and I think they're worth taking on. I think I'd like to lay them. I'd like to lay Man City at 2-5 and get the draw running for you as well. You know, as a bookmaker, I'll be laying Manchester City all day long.
Just a confirmation of those odds then. Wigan 7-1, Sportingbet 8-1 Blue Square. A little bit of variation, nothing too substantial, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're just trying to anticipate what Nigel's saying, that if the bigger teams do win and we've got a heavy position on City. Conversely, if we get a few good results on Saturday and Sunday, maybe we will drift that out and take Man City on with our profits.
Yeah. Neil, like this, hate this?
Well, you know, I've been a fan of Wigan generally this year. I agree.
They've made you money.
Yeah, they've done all right for me. I mean, I'm not a massive one for spending a lot of time worrying about who's playing for who. I tend to think that's all in the prices. I have seen, I think Boyle's a 9-1 Wigan at home. I mean, that seems like a big price for any team to be at home in the Premiership. And also, I agree with, despite what I just said, I agree with what Nigel just said, that Silva is a massive factor for Man City, and they have looked a bit, well, not as good recently. So yeah, I would be opposing. In these games, though, I tend to find over the years, I always think, oh, it's a really good idea. Let's oppose them at 4-11. I always seem to do my money in the last 10 minutes. So I've found a cure to that now. I'll be going back to my favourite one of probably having a look at laying Man City to be winning at half time. Okay. I tend to think away from home, in front of the TV cameras, sometimes the games are a little bit slow to get going, and teams are sort of feeling each other out for the first 20 minutes or so. And I'd rather lay them at kind of even money or something like that to be winning at half time. And
Flash, you were saying earlier that you quite fancy Wigan.
Well, I just fancy basically Wigan not to get beat. I mean, they defend really deep, and I think that they've got no penetration at the moment, Man City. They've struggled. I mean, I've said for the last few weeks that I'm Man United all the way for the Premiership, and how much you would actually lose. Obviously, Company now. You lost Toure. You've lost the other Toure. They've got a few injuries. I think that they're overrated. So I think there's great value with Wigan, but the draw, that's a saver as well.
I love the Mancini. I'm light on players. My poor fate is I'm terrible. I've got nobody to play. It's the most expensively assembled squad of all time.
This is an ideal game where the conditions just add up to you know, the sentiment, the way City's form is. I think as a bookmaker, you want to be taking on City at this kind of price, no doubt about it.
Okay. Also, lads, they say that there's going to be a cold snap over the weekend. So Wigan on Monday night, that could be sort of -1, -2. I mean, are they all going to fancy it? The Man City big boys, you know. So everything points towards Wigan getting something out of the game.
Interesting. Well, we'll check that out on Monday night, of course. Now, the two televised games over the weekend are Newcastle QPR is the first one, and Nigel was already talking about that. Betting Butler. Tell us what you were saying again. You had some thoughts on Newcastle QPR.
I jumped in a little bit early on that game, didn't I? But
it's fine. It's fine.
I think Newcastle represent one of the best bets of the weekend. I really do. I think they were absolutely fantastic against Manchester United. They come back and from losing, look like they're going to lose in the FA Cup against Blackburn to nick it, which something you wouldn't have expected from a Newcastle side 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they've got something about them. I know they're missing some key players with the African Nations Cup, but QPR are missing some key players in Joey Barton. They've also got problems, and I always think that when a manager comes in, the punters react to it and say, oh, well, he's going to change it around straight away. It doesn't happen. You know, it takes time. And QPR are a club in transition. They're looking for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Mark Hughes will do a job. He will bring in the key players, but he's not going to turn around. They're a very, very average side. And they're playing a Newcastle side at home, who are a match for anybody, as we saw against Manchester United. And 4-5 for me. I just can't believe it. I mean, if Warnock was stuck in his side today, like I said earlier, I think Newcastle will be around about 8-13, 4-7 to win this game. And I think the Hughes factor has just made this price what it is today.
I think this is a unique situation because Nigel's right, punters do like to latch on to a new manager, but Warnock is a huge motivator of players, and if anything, those players would have had a much easier week than they've ever had in the last 2 seasons when he's been in charge there. I mean, the way he motivates his players, the way he gets them training, he works them extremely hard. With Mark Hughes coming in, obviously he's got an impression to make because he's the new manager, but if anything, they'll be foot off the gas there with those QPR players, almost. You know, the strict master has gone and, you know, we'll take it easy with this new guy. So I can actually see that being a big angle in this game. And I've got to agree with Nigel that Newcastle look a fantastic bet at the prices.
Well, interesting, you guys are, you're not 4-5, you're 11-8 on both Sporting Bet and Blue Square.
Yeah, we're a tad shorter than the best price. Yeah.
Interesting. Newcastle are a funny team, aren't they, from a betting point of view? Because they, I mean, I saw the 2 matches over the festive period, one against Liverpool where they looked terrible. They looked like they were going to be a classic fall away mid-table team, and then against Man United they look like world beaters. From a betting point of view, Neil, how do you size them up?
I like to back Newcastle at bigger prices, really. I mean, I don't disagree with what Nigel said. I wouldn't really want to back QPR in this game, but for me this is a bit of a no-bet game. I can't really be lumping on Newcastle at odds on. They're the kind of team I'm looking to maybe back at sort of 7-2 in an away game against one of the decent teams.
Yeah. Flash, what do you like in this one?
I'd like to just watch him brief because, as the betting butler said about the managers coming in, the last time he said that was Martin O'Neill's first game, and look at the run they've gone on, and they came back and won their first game, I think 2-1. So I'm firmly in Mark Hughes' camp. He organises so well. All the boys are playing for their places. They're all playing for their futures at the big QPR. So I think that there's nothing there that even springs out at me. It's just a watch him brief to see how QPR respond to having a new manager.
Interesting. Remember, you don't have to bet on every game, apparently. I need to write that down, actually, and put it on my screen. Our last televised game, or the other televised game, is Swansea-Arsenal. How much interest will there be in this one?
Well, I think it's an interesting game because, you know, Arsenal, I think, have shown us actually in a few weeks, and in fairness to Alan, he was the one who identified that Arsenal were probably not that great a side. And Swansea have been terrific in a few games recently. They were very good against Spurs. I spoke to a couple of people who went to that game. And all of a sudden, when you kind of add these things up in the conditions of the game, it really looks like, from a bookmaking point of view, you want to be taking on Arsenal. I mean, I know we're 3-4, Blue Square 8-11, but, you know, I spoke to a lot of people who went to the Emirates on Wednesday against Leeds, and they were very poor in that game as well. They haven't really shown enough. I think this could be a game where we actually scooped a lot, and if you want to back Swansea, well, fair enough. But I do think Arsenal look very vulnerable in this one.
Yeah, it was Monday the game, and I was there, and it was a poor Arsenal performance, and totally overshadowed, obviously, by the fact that Henry's come off the bench and scored the goal, and all the focus has been on the goal. But the 70 minutes prior to that, that was an awful Arsenal performance against the Leeds side that looked, as soon as they had the ball, as if they weren't really challenged by the quality of the Arsenal players, who should obviously be a division above. Now, you know, as Russ has said, Arsenal, my team, I'm probably a bit too critical, a bit too honest about them. But I have said that they do represent value to take on. You know, I think I said that there are 2 or 3 games coming up just before Christmas. I think if you back their opposition in all 3 games, you'd end up with profit. Well, Fulham eventually got that profit in that final of those 3 games. And I would say again that with the defensive injuries that Arsenal have, it's still time to take them on, even though the prices are creeping a lot closer to evens. If that game was played on the first day of the season, Arsenal would be about 4-7, 2-1 on. So you have to bear that in mind and say that you're slowly giving away value in Arsenal as the bookmakers are getting more clued up to the fact that they're not as good as people say, but there's still value there with Swansea, I would say.
Interesting, though, because aren't Swansea the kind of team they'll just outplay? Flash, am I crazy? I don't like taking on Arsenal in this game.
No way. I mean, I'm Arsenal here because Swansea are the poor man's Arsenal, and they're doing so well at like their keep ball, but they'll come up against basically the Masters. Now, probably outside of Tottenham at the moment, then Arsenal.
They're not the Masters. They're not the Masters. Everyone thinks they are the Masters, and people watch 10 minutes on Match of the Day, but they're not. I mean, I've never had to. I must be the only fan in the world who comes onto TV and actually says, "No, my team are not good."
I like it.
They're not. They're not at all. And Flash, if you watch 90 minutes, if you watch the whole of this season, every 90 minutes that Arsenal played this season, and even watch them from a punting point of view and suggest that you're on them at short prices, they're awful. They give the ball away. They don't defend well. They've conceded 14 goals from individual errors this season. 4 own goals and 10 where they've given the ball away on the edge of the area. They're awful. Arsene Wenger isn't as good a manager as people say, and Arsenal are not as good a team as people say.
That's a bit harsh.
He's not. He's not. He really isn't. And I've been saying this.
Manager, as people say.
He's not, Flash.
The whole of the British game.
Well, that's an absolute myth. They would have had to have changed it at some point anyway. And
But
all
they
he did was
did,
bring in a
Arsene
couple
Wenger.
of. He brought in a couple of reasonably good ideas about diet. He gets credited with signing great players. He doesn't. He doesn't have a good strike rate on those. All the ones that he found were already in great position. People say he found Cesc Fabregas. He was the under-17 World Cup Player of the Year. That's not finding someone. He was already at Barcelona. People say he found Patrick Vieira. He was at AC Milan, who at the time were the best team in the world. He couldn't get in the team. Okay. He's had to go and source those players. But if you look at some of the poor players in the Championship and League One and League Two, and even in our division, that Arsene Wenger has shone on a bright new stage with the reserves and Carling Cup, and say, where does he find them from? Well, these guys are plying their trade 4 divisions below.
Alan, you know we're recording this, don't you?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I've been banging on it about it for a long time, and it's nothing to do with the lack of trophies there, but people totally overrate Arsene Wenger, and they totally overrate Arsenal.
Arsenal to win 3-0.
I'm not saying they won't win this game.
Oh, well, I thought you was for a minute.
Well, no, this is an individual game. I'm talking about people's view of Arsenal over the last 10 years.
But do you think? But do you think? I mean,
any more points? If Tottenham going so strong.
Well, they can't afford to, but
they're fighting for one position for the Champions League.
Yeah, but you're talking like people have a choice of when they drop points or not. I mean, obviously they will go and try and win, but I'm just saying at the moment they're not good enough.
But do you think?
But
Do you think
big
the real?
boys, they do deliver on the big stage.
They
and
don't.
I just until the end of the season.
I hate to break this up.
They
I
do
do
not.
need to know what Nigel thinks of this. The betting butler, what do you think of this? You need to post a casting vote, I think.
Well, I'm going to vote for Arsene Wenger to be the manager of the year this year. I think. I mean, I've been down to the Emirates a couple of times this season. Saw them play QPR last week, and they were very, very average. I mean, they were very, very average side. They struggle scoring goals at the moment, apart from Van Persie. You know, that's their big problem for me. But you know, a good point Alan said there, how would you price this up at the start of the season? I don't think it's more of how negative Arsenal have been or how disappointing Arsenal think. I think it's been how good Swansea have been. They've taken the Premier League by storm, and they are a very, very solid and very tough team to beat. I mean, you've only look at they've only conceded 4 goals at home in 10 football matches. That sums it up.
That's phenomenal.
The best defensive record at bar anybody in the Premier League. So I think this is going to be difficult, and I really do. I think it's going to be very difficult for Arsenal. You know, obviously Alan's much more into watching Arsenal and knows a lot about what goes on behind the scenes than I do. But purely on a football basis, the form that Swansea showed this season, showing they're a hard match for anybody at home. They've drawn with Tottenham. Their last 3 games have been draws. I wouldn't be surprised to see this being a 0-0, 1-1 draw, because both teams, even Arsenal now, don't get involved in high-scoring matches. You know, before everyone used to say, "Oh, Arsenal entertaining 4-3s on this kind of stuff." Not the case anymore.
Okay, Nigel. Sorry, mate. We're going to go to a break, but that was a great overview and fascinating stuff about Swansea. Of course, the beauty of this is you can decide whether you take on Arsenal or not this weekend. And we will, of course, find out and bring all of it to you next week. Now, we're going to get into the rest of the weekend sport after the break. Some horse racing, some Australian Open and some NFL. So you won't want to go anywhere. Join us for more after this. Welcome back to the Punter. We're going through the weekend sporting action. It's Friday the 13th today, but don't worry, when the actual sporting contests are resolved, it won't be. so that's fine. We're going to do very quickly a little bit of horse racing because there's not actually much going on this weekend, is there?
Pretty quiet, and we've got some decent stuff at Lingfield with Blue Square doing the flat there. We've got some good racing at Kempton and also at Warwick, but it's not massive. I'd say it's probably the last weekend of not top class stuff before we get into the real run up before Cheltenham. There's a good meeting at Ascot next Saturday, isn't there, guys?
Yeah.
Well, let's not spend too much time on it. But you made a really interesting point about the anti-post betting for Cheltenham.
Well, it's just a thought, and I think many of us are kind of looking at the anti-post markets now and maybe trying to find our Cheltenham bets. But certainly from a sporting bet angle, and I guess around the industry, we're seeing less anti-post action this season. Probably because over the last 18 months, when you come to the day of the big races, Nick, and I think we've already touched upon this on the Punter, we're getting enormous, massive, genuine offers from all of the big firms, frankly. Everybody throwing their hat into the ring. Why take a chance with an anti-post bet now? Most of the firms, I know...
So the specials from the bookies have effectively killed the anti-post
markets. And because none of the firms genuinely are non-run and no bet at the moment, I think maybe Ladbrokes maybe are championship races.
I think on the championship races, or one or two of them are.
But I don't feel, I think the firms, certainly from my perspective, have a need to feel committed to go non-run and no bet now, because I know that, on the day you're going to get some huge value, and I think that's probably taken a lot of the lustre off these anti-post markets.
Well, I think it's funny, the non-run and no bet, it was a real big concession when it came in, and now people it's assumed it's just going to happen.
Right.
I mean, you see it in the Racing Post quite often. When are they going non-run and no bet? I've seen it in the letters and the little the sort of texting comments thing. As if it's just inevitable. So it's like no one has a bet into, well, why would you? If they're going to do that in a week's time, you might as well wait.
Okay.
I think, well, the opening race of the meeting, the Supreme, I mean, this time last year, I think Q-Card was about 7-4, so it looked quite an uncompetitive race and an uncompetitive start to
10 the field now.
Well, it's 10-1 the field this year, but also most of the major firms will have a concession on that. We did last year. Lots of firms will. A concession on that first race. Why would you bet anti-post in the Supreme at the moment? I mean, some people were offering to double the odds on the winner of that race.
And it won't just be a standard. That's the great point that you're making there, Alan. This is the key bit. It won't just be a standard concession. It'll be a mind-blowingly, really financially beneficial concession. So why do that?
Yeah. So the advice from the guys is maybe keep your powder dry, and we'll of course keep you informed of any moves between now and Cheltenham. We're going to move it on though. A big sporting event happening the other side of the world, the Australian Tennis Open, and we've got an expert in house. Nigel Sealey, the betting butler, is a big tennis fan. Nigel, tell us what you think about this Australian Open.
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that this tournament is really only there for the taking for 5 people. There's only 5 people who realistically would win it. So the first 5 in the betting zone, it's not tennis for years and years. Men's tennis was all about the quality and depth, and there was players who could beat anyone on any given day. I mean, Djokovic will be 100-1 on shot in the first round, second round, third round. He won't get any sort of decent price for betting until you get to around about the last 16, because they are such in a league above everybody else. Now, for a betting purposes, you look at Djokovic as the favourite, rightly so. Federer second favourite, with Murray and Nadal sort of vying for third favouritism. But there's huge question marks over Federer. He's coming towards the end of his career. He's got a very bad back problem. He pulled out injured against in the tournament last week when he played to Sonda. He looks a man who's coming to the end of his career, and he looks a man whose body is finally.
Sorry, Nigel, sorry to cut you off in mid-flow. We're just having a little problem with your sound, so we're just going to try and sort it and get back to you. Guys, tell me about this.
I think one of the points that Nigel makes there is a really good one. We've got a terrific tennis trader, I have to tell you that, Dommy Wooland at our place.
Well, that was my first question. You have a tennis guy.
We have a tennis guy who's very, very good, and I mean, that helps in itself.
It's funny because, sorry to interrupt you, but like all the firms have, different people covering different sports. And in some sports, you can sort of say, well, Ladbrokes are very strong on that sport because their guy is really good on that particular sport, and maybe William Hills are not so good on that sport. In tennis, Sportingbet have the best guy,
and there's no doubt about that. And I think we're giving away trade secrets here, but it's fascinating for the point of view to hear that. But we really have got a strong tennis guy, and he absolutely subscribes to that view about Federer. I mean, this is a guy who's never had an injury at all. All of a sudden, his body's breaking down. Is that not just the absolute red alert?
But I think I want to just press that point. If Sportingbet are best price somebody in the tennis, and you're thinking of lumping on, you should have a word with yourself, and maybe. So it's not helping you to get any extra business, but maybe you should go and visit Alan's firm and say to yourself, well, look, I don't know who does the tennis actually at Blue Square. He may be very good, but maybe you go to Corals, who are probably completely clueless, and the Office Junior probably.
And I'm sure there are some firms.
I'll tell you an interesting thing. Look at that Federer price there. Both of them 100 to 30. Now We have an ex-spread trader who's been in the business a long time, exactly the same as Sporting Bet have, Dominic. So they've both come from a very similar background, our trader and Sporting Bet's trader, and they both seem to have taken that same view. And these will be two of the shrewdest tennis judges in the whole world. And they're both saying that Federer should be a best price of 130. I think you do need to take that clue, apart from the fact that, yes, obviously we do want to take business.
Exactly. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what the butler says, but I think a lot of this action doesn't actually revolve around the outrights. It is genuinely the daily trading on every game.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the real heavy money starts being.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like Neil pointed out there, you go through all of these first round, second round matches, there's a whole array of prices, and there are some absolute gems you can pick out. And if you've actually got an idea of a firm that's got an idea of what's going on, that's where you can make the big money. I don't think the real value is in the outright book, but maybe the butler's got some different view on that.
Nigel, how do you agree with what Russ is saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think the outright is harder now than it has been before because it's dominated by the 2 or 3. The each way betting isn't so much there anymore. You can't get a 33 to 1 shot. But the thing for me is, I think Del Potro, who is short with both Blue Square and Sporting Bet, which is taking notes. He's 20 to 1 if you shop around. I think he could offer some each way value. He's a Grand Slam winner. He's a player on his game called a big serve. He did a big serve at the Australian Open. He can match for anybody on his day. If he's got barring injury problems, he could be a decent each way. But I still think Djokovic is the man to beat. I think there's no doubt about it. This is a man who was awesome from hitting out from this start of the season all the way through to Wimbledon. He felt at the end of the campaign didn't do too well because he was exhausted. But he's the man to beat, and I'll definitely take on Federer and Nadal. And Murray will do as usual, get through to the semis, get through to this final, maybe get to the final. But you've got to remember, he's never won a set in a Grand Slam final, and that's his problem. He's got Lendl there. He's 5 to 1 shot, but realistically, when he gets into the final, semi-final, you just want to lay him wherever he plays.
Fantastic stuff. Well, we will follow that because I think it's a 2-week tournament, so we'll have an update on any market moves or anything like that next weekend. We're going to move on to the NFL. If I haven't got you into NFL betting yet, I'm determined to. It's the best thing ever. And it is playoff time. Neil, it's so much fun, right?
Oh, yeah, well, you say that. It was agony last week. I sat in front of my TV for 14 hours, absolutely in bits I was most of the time. If I had a cat, it would be in the RSPCA would have been round 4 times.
What about this weekend? We've had wildcard weekend, so into like the playoffs proper.
Well, I made some notes actually because I spoke to you last week about the way the money's going. So we've got 4 games this weekend. We've got the Broncos and the Patriots. So obviously we got the Broncos to win last week. It's Tim Tebow. Now I said to you, the thing about, my way of betting on any sport is to accept in a lot of cases that the market is right. The market knows what it's doing. And so you should only bet when the market overcompensates one way or the other.
So is this, we've got 8 to 1 on and 9 to 2 or 11 to 2 against if you want to bet without the points?
What happened with Tebow was the market, in sort of 3 weeks from the end of the season, the market started to get way behind Tebow. People love Tebow. Denver, very, very popular team in Vegas. The last few weeks of the season, he was playing shockingly badly, and then everyone went against Tebow, which is why I thought they were a good bet last week. Now, this week, I expected the overreaction to come back towards Tebow because he played so well last week. It hasn't really happened. 13.5 is the line. Some people are saying it may head towards 14. I can tell you that 57% of the bets taken on this game so far have been for the Denver Broncos getting 13.5. So it does suggest that it's not going to go towards 14
so it isn't
in
going to
early betting.
Quickly run us through the other games because
okay, the other games.
Time to do this.
All right, the other games. Houston against the Ravens. Houston are an underdog here, a 9-point underdog. Baltimore are at home. Baltimore had the week off. Houston had a tough-ish game last week. It wasn't that tough in the end. I like under in this game. I'm going to bet under the first half. The total points in the game is trading. Where are we? Sorry. No, I can't read my writing. The total points of the game is trading 36.5. I'm looking to try and see if I can get under 18 in the first half. I think it'll be quite a cautious early game. Under 18.5 will do me. Most of the money in this game has been, it's actually split. This game's a pretty even split. For me, I think I like the dog and I like the under. Then we've got the Giants at the Packers.
Yep.
And we get a graphic for that?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, the Giants are a big underdog there. The Packers had the week off. Obviously, it's a cold weather game. 52.5 points. I love the under in this game. I'm going under 27 in the first half. I think if there are going to be points in the game, there'll be cheap points later on if the Packers are winning by far. Funnily enough, all the money in this game is for the Giants. 73% of early bets have been for the Giants on the handicap.
I know we're pressed for time. I mean, the Giants, something they look as though they've got the same kind of mentality when they won it a few years ago. The world's against them, and they're going away to all these teams. And they won this sort of game against Dallas a few years ago. But this kind of game, wasn't it?
Because it's fresh in people's mind, and they've just seen them win, and they won fairly impressively last week. That's why the money's going for them. We haven't seen Green Bay for a couple of weeks. I would tend to side slightly with Green Bay here.
Me too.
But I'm definitely under the points.
And finally,
but my bet of the week, and this is really my absolute nap of the week, has got to be the 49ers at home against the New Orleans Saints. Now, 76% of the money in early betting is going for the Saints. The 3.5 is a massive hook. I love 3-point home home underdogs. I think that's a brilliant system to play on. Teams that have had a rest in the playoffs, that's brilliant as well. Teams coming in when they've had to play a game to get there, something to be against. New Orleans outdoors, that's a factor that people are looking at. New Orleans in the red zone when they're outdoors, don't score as well when they get into third down situations away from home. There's all kinds of trends moving towards San Francisco.
You love the 49ers, and I love your point that last week it's so fresh in people's minds. Let's just see how that plays into the overall. So this is to win the Super Bowl if you're interested in the futures bet. I love the 49ers at 16 to 1. I can't believe that price.
Yeah, I see Blue Square at 16 to 1. Actually, I hate to mention the popular exchange. Other exchanges are available, but I believe Betfair, you can get 20 to 1 the Niners. I'm not suggesting doing an each way bet, so if you're going to play win only, there's no reason to not do it with the exchanges and get the better price. Sorry, boys.
Fantastic.
There you go.
There are your Super Bowl odds. Another couple of weeks to go in that, and it does keep you busy all Sunday night just when you think all your betting opportunities are gone. I can't recommend it enough. We're going to get our punters' picks and the specials from the bookies after this break. Welcome back to The Punter, the show that tells you just how bad a manager Arsene Wenger is. No, really. Watch the early bit if you missed it. It was great. Now we're going to find out what the tips are from our punters and our handicappers. We'll start, first of all, with the man on form. Flash, you're 5 for 5 this last week. Are you going to be able to repeat it?
I hope so. I mean, they look all right on paper, so I think we'll know about 5:05 on Saturday evening. I was going to put Arsenal in, but obviously I like to do it all on Saturday, so I know where I am for Sunday. I've gone for Southend away at Northampton. Southend big, strong, going really well. Northampton struggling even with the new manager. And then the other 4 are going to be home. So Cheltenham, I think they've only let in 1 goal in the last 5 against Aldershot, who just cannot buy anything at the moment. Derby, a young team, full of confidence, going against Coventry, who are rock bottom and absolutely struggling. Preston versus Wickham. Wickham, again, I've not gone for the teams that I've gone for to win have actually because of the negative of who they're playing. So Preston at home to Wickham and Leyton Orient at home to Chesterfield. Pays about 25 to 1. Hopefully we'll be here next week and say we've got 5 again.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. And what do you have an idea of what that would pay if you did?
About 25 to 1.
Right, nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Anything else outside your 5 for this weekend you want to tip up before we leave you?
Yeah, I mean, I like New Orleans on the NFC side, and I like the Patriots on the AFC side. So a Patriots-Saints final would be great for me.
Okay, thank you so much, Flash. Lots of luck this week. And
good luck, boys.
Let's see if we can run the table again.
Good luck, mate.
Nigel.
I've got one for you in the Australian Open men's singles first round.
Fantastic. What is this?
I've got a guy called Michael Russell. He's 5 to 4 against Chella.
I might think write it down.
Chella has played 4 games so far this season, lost all 4. Man, at the end of his career, got to the quarterfinals of Grand Slams about 6 or 7 years ago. This is his last season on tour. Russell was a young man coming up. He's played 3 qualifying games into the Australian Open, won them all in straight sets. Big serving. I think Chella is the wrong favourite. Russell should be favourite. 5 to 4, Michael Russell to beat Chella.
That's fantastic, Nigel. That is a tip you will not have heard anywhere else until right now. Thanks so much for talking to us this week, Nigel. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Neil Channing.
Yes.
Your time to shine.
Oh, I've got tips.
I feel like you're on the cusp of like a big week? Because you keep kind of getting a wash.
I so much wish. Well, look, there was a couple of football ones that I nearly put in. I decided to go with one of the two because the caption's not that enormous. So the middle one we go for. I want to lay Chelsea to be winning at half-time against Sunderland. There's two games I quite like doing that in the Premier this week. The other one I quite like Stoke to get some kind of early good start against Liverpool, or 0-0 at half-time or something. So I'll probably, with my own money, I'll definitely do that. But I'll also probably lay Liverpool at home against Stoke to be winning at half-time. They're both around the same, actually. Chelsea are slightly shorter, which is why I put them in the caption.
120 to 500 of that. Your big bet is the 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers. I have to disagree with Flash and say that this is a great spot for the 49ers and a really tough spot for the Saints. And also, don't forget, we get the 3.5 points. These games are going to be close. So, Flash can still be right and get the Saints motoring on towards the Super Bowl, but the Niners get 3.5 points. There's a really good, 15% of NFL games are won by 3 points. So this
great bet. And then to round it off, you got Del Potro, which Nigel covered for us.
Yeah, I mean Nigel spoke a bit about that. I mean, there's basically 6 people that can win it. Djokovic, Murray, and Tsonga are in the top half of the draw. Del Potro, Federer, and Nadal are in the bottom half of the draw. Sharp. So you've got to
nice
avoid
price.
Djokovic really.
Nice price.
And as you say, nice price.
We'll see how we get on with those. Russ, this weekend, what are you up to? Tell me.
Well, I'm going to White Hart Lane tomorrow to watch the mighty Wolves visit there. That's an interesting one. I think Spurs we're expecting that bandwagon to continue and the surge, obviously, potentially for the title to go on. Just in terms of money, we've seen money for Leeds to beat Palace. I think Palace had a tough game in midweek and obviously a couple of viral problems apparently. And also the one that Flash mentioned there, Preston to beat Wickham. Big move for Preston in that game. Wickham's owner, Steve Hayes, very keen to sell the club. A general ill feeling around there. So they'd be the interesting ones for me.
Excellent. And Alan, anything from you at Blue Square?
Yeah, I'm off to Lingfield for our continuation of our sprint series. This is the second leg of the sprint series that we sponsor there. And in the Blue Square Bet Premier, there are only 2 matches this weekend, but Wrexham can go back to the top of the table with a win at Tamworth. Tamworth, plenty of injury problems. You're getting the team that could go top at 10 to 11 to go and win at Tamworth, one of the poorest sides in the division at the moment. If this was in the Premier League, this would be the equivalent of back in Man City going away at somewhere like Blackburn at 10 to 11.
Make sure to wade in, doesn't it?
It doesn't make me want to.
You would definitely back that, and I cannot see them losing now.
Fantastic.
I mean, we're 4 to 5. I wanted to go shorter. There's no reason to because people will obviously be taking the 10 to 11.
Shout,
great tip, Alan. Thanks so much to all my guests. We're out of show, I'm afraid. Thanks to the betting butler. Thanks to Flash and, of course, to Russ Wiseman, Neil Channing and Alan Alger in studio. I'm going to spend the weekend sweating the NFL playoffs and apparently a tennis player called Michael Russell and Tamworth. I hope you're going to do the same, and I hope that all your bets this weekend are winning ones. We'll be back with more from the Punter this time next week. Take care.